All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to week number 5. That is right, week number 5 of your 9410 class, which is your cultural heritage class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin. And what we are going to do this week is going to be, again, another shorter one. This one, again, will be under 20 minutes, and again, you do have that option to speed up. But this is our last week of that introductory material. So, yes, we are starting next week, going to get into things that I believe are going to be more fun. But I'm glad that you all have made it through the 5 weeks of introductory material. And it sounds like you all even enjoyed the introductory material based on what I'm seeing in the discussion board prompts. So that's a very, very good sign. Again, I'm very glad to have you all with me. Let's do the state of the course update first, and then I'm going to soapbox just a little bit about intangible heritage, but I'm not going to say a whole heck of a lot. And again, this one will be under 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, state of the course update. Again, you all are doing largely very, very well. I am very happy with how things have been going in this class so far. I do not have any late submissions with the first written assignment, that visit to a cultural heritage site. No late submissions. You all are doing a great job. I'm very happy about that. It may take me a while, honestly, to grade these because I'm actually going to grade my my reference class assignments first. That's a core class, and the assignments are a little bit harder in there than in the selectives. That's the reason why I'm going to go ahead and grade them down first. Okay, so I am going to prioritize their assignments and get into yours, but still, hopefully, I will have your grades back by the end of the month, or at least right at the beginning of March. So what do we have outside of that? What do we have coming up from Dr. Jace in Dr. Jace's class? Well, you do have your intangible heritage, discussion prompt this week. Also know that next week there will be no check-in video. Next week we will have our first we're going to have our first guest speaker. We're going to have 3 guest speakers during the class. We're going to have our first Josh Shepard from UC Boulder, who's going to talk about the Library of Congress Sound Submission Project. I think you guys are really going to, well, I think you all. When I say guys, I'm not necessarily talking about males or men, but still I'm trying to avoid gendered language. So I think y'all will really enjoy his session next week. It is mandatory. You do have to be there. We have 3 mandatory sync sessions, and the reason why we have those mandatory sync sessions is A, so that you can hear from some professionals in the field, but then B, also so that you can interact with your classmates and your colleagues within the class in real time. You all do need to network, and you need to start networking at the student level. I did that, and that's the reason why I was able to get where I am. It's not because I'm smart. It's not because I'm handsome. It's because I was willing to talk to people, and wow, what an amazing thought. But not everybody in libraries is willing to talk to people. So yes, there are going to be times when your willingness to speak will actually give you a leg up. It's really, I shouldn't say that easy, but that is really something that is a difference maker in this field. So yes, don't forget Wednesday, February the 22nd, we are going to have our first sync session with Josh. You do have a midterm quiz that's going to be due on February 26th. If you remember, I pushed that back. So that's going to be due on February the 26th, and it's actually not very hard, y'all. It's going to be open book. You might even have multiple. I think you've got at least 2 opportunities to take it, but it's not hard. The class last semester, they all finished it within like 10 minutes. It's not that bad, y'all. And then from there, you will have your 4 heritages paper due on March the 19th. So you're still over a month away for that one. Okay. There are some things. Oh, I do need to mention this. Yes. So for the music and cultural heritage module for next week. One thing that I do want you all to know, because there isn't going to be why is that due date that? Okay, I'm going to fix that due date for one thing. But one thing that I do want you all to know is that for the, I think I am going to allow you all to actually, if you don't like, or you don't want to do the music documentary that was assigned to you, you can try to find a different one to replace it with, but you have to okay it with me first, because I do want your music documentaries to have that strong cultural heritage element, and not every music documentary is going to have that. Okay, so I do want you all to, if you do want to switch, contact me first, and we'll make sure that what you have is something that's fitting. By the way, if you do see a documentary without a name attached to it, and you'll see quite a few of these, Last of the Mississippi Jukes, this is all about class size. So I had these assigned to people in previous classes, and then Kaylee is actually the last person on the roster in this class. So these ones that don't have names by them, they are actually up for grabs if one of you wants to grab those. But then also you can find your own music documentary out there somewhere, and then just ask me if run it by me. Again, email me and run it by me to make sure that it's something that actually has a cultural heritage element to it, a strong cultural heritage element to it. And if I say it does, then you can go for it instead of the one that is assigned to you. But you are also, of course, welcome to just stick to what's assigned to you. For some of you, you may find that the easiest thing to do, just so that you don't have to go searching for one, okay? But that is pretty much where we are with that. Now, I am going to go back to the assignment/discussions just to look very quickly at the prompt that we have this week for intangible heritage. And this will also segue me into my little bit of soapboxing that I'm going to do. And Haley has already done it. So, yes, what we've got here, we're talking about intangible heritage now. And intangible heritage a lot of times includes like oral tradition. I would even say literature, even though people would be like, well, no, you can hold a book, blah, blah, blah. I think that literature has it can be debated, but oral tradition certainly is intangible heritage, as are like festivals and those sorts of things. So events a lot of times are going to be your intangible heritage, but then also like folklore, oral tradition, like anecdotes, little pieces of wisdom that you see passed down in cultures. It's not actually, even if it is written down, it could, by some standards, be considered intangible heritage. So that's how I look at it. I wouldn't necessarily say that, I don't know, Canterbury Tale. I wouldn't necessarily say that is tangible heritage just because it's written. I would still say that it can be intangible heritage, especially if somebody actually, I don't know that anyone would ever be able to do this, but if somebody read it aloud, then their performance would be intangible heritage. So that's pretty much how all that goes. But what I'm going to say is, as you're looking through the content for this week, one thing that I want you to do is just kind of divorce yourself from certain forms of colonial thinking. We in Western nations, and I include myself because I'm American. My ancestors have been here since slave days. Okay, so I say that to say that one of the things that we tend to be very guilty of here in Western nations is that we do think that our ways of doing things are better, and that is born from colonialism. Not strictly from colonialism, but largely from colonialism. And so when we talk about, a lot of times Africans actually are not, Africans in particular are not writing things down when it comes to cultural heritage. Oral tradition and folklore and passing down knowledge through spoken word is actually very, very common in West Africa. And a lot of people who have, I guess, colonialized or European mindsets would say, hey, that's not the way to do it, because if you write it down, then you have it. If you have it written down, then if somebody dies unexpectedly or something like that, that knowledge is not lost. And I get that. And again, that's a colonial way of operating, and it's not necessarily a bad way of operating. But there are reasons why Africans will a lot of times stick with the oral tradition. And it's not about wealth, and it's not about intelligence like a lot of colonized minds like to assume. The reason why a lot of Africans do like to have their heritage passed or transmitted through speech as opposed to writing is because that also is their way of protecting it. And Africa has been looted, as you all know, a lot by Europe, by China, by the United States, and probably by others as well. So when we talk about West Africa, yes, we're talking about a people who have had a lot stolen from them and can't get a lot of that stuff back. And when we talk about cultural heritage, we are including artifacts. There are a lot of artifacts all over the world that came from Africa, and the Africans can't get their stuff back. So having the spoken or the oral tradition can be very beneficial to Africans in particular, because that way they can speak it, they can share it with the people that they want to share it with. But it's very hard to take spoken word and just grab it and go. You know what I'm saying? And steal it. So that is how they keep their knowledge and their wisdom within their village, within their community. And that is a way to, I guess, avoid appropriation and cultural theft. Okay. So that's something that I use that example, and then I'm going to get back to my main point, that main point being, folks, our Western ways or our European ways of doing things are not necessarily the best way to do them. A lot of times they are a way to do them, and they work a lot of times for us. Certainly I do things in a colonialized way most of the time, honestly, because I'm in the United States and we're a very colonial nation. But it's not always necessarily the best way to go about doing things. Okay. And that's what I want you all to keep in mind as you're dissecting the readings this week, as you're dissecting any of the content in this class, quite frankly. And, so as we talk about intangible heritage and you all get into, speaking about intangible heritage that you're familiar with and things of that nature, one thing that I want you all to, again, do is appreciate that heritage for what it is without suggesting that, there are ways to make it better, but, and I know that I actually mentioned commodification and everything with the prompt this week, but there are certain things that don't necessarily need to generate revenue, and cultural heritage, it's great when it does generate revenue. I am a big supporter of heritage tourism, but I would also say that not everything needs to be commodified, and that's another part of, I would say, colonialized thinking that I want you all to possibly break, or at least look beyond, as you are examining and interrogating the content within this course. Let's go ahead and leave it there. That's all we need to say. I am Dr. Jace, and I hope you all treat each other with peace and grace. We will see you next week for our synced session. There will be an announcement to remind you all, and that announcement will include the Zoom link that will probably come this weekend. Ciao.